Doug. Come on in.
Hi, Martha. Nice to see you again. How's everything going in the world of product management?
There's never enough time in the day, but can't complain. So Solomon told me you're going to solve all my problems with this report generation stuff, huh?
I'm gonna try. Yeah, I spoke with Solomon this morning, and he gave me a high-level overview of what the project is all about. But I wanted to sit down with you and get your perspective on things.
Great.
From my discussion with Solomon, it sounds like there are a couple of primary problems. First, that reports aren't ready on the first of the month. And second, that report generation takes up too much of your time. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the second problem is a bigger deal to me, but that sounds about right. Solomon is always pushing to have the reports ready as soon as the month begins, and I just don't think it's possible.
Okay, well, maybe we can solve those problems. First things first, can you tell me about the process from your perspective, how it works?
Sure. Well, around the beginning of the month, the PMs start to send me their individual reports.
Around the beginning of the month? What is that, the first few days?
Yeah. Usually it's the first few days, but there are always some stragglers. Some people are really good at getting them to me on the first of the month, but some people are a day or two late, and then there are some people that I always have to chase.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I think we've all been there. Would it be possible for you to give me a list of names with the dates and times they emailed you their reports for the last few months?
Doug.
I know it's a pain and extra work for you, but the better I know all the details, the better I'll be able to come up with solutions. You know, I'm going to need sample reports that they send you too, so if it's easier to just forward me their emails, I can handle the rest.
Sure, I can do that.
Great. What's next?
Well, they send me their individual reports. As they send them to me, I usually give them a once-over to make sure all of the information is filled out. And usually it's fine.
When things aren't fine, what are some of the problems?
Well, sometimes, and this is a disaster, they forget to enter the currencies for the transactions. Then I have to send it back to the PM to fix it. Sometimes it's smaller things. They forget to enter the ship date or other spaces on the form.
Actually, can you show me one of the completed reports? I'm having a hard time visualizing this.
Sure. This is one of Delia's. She's one of our rock stars.
Is that right? More than $400,000 in sales for the month?
Yeah. And that was a good month for her, but she's been kicking everyone's butt this year.
Solomon said that Delia is frequently late with her reports. Is that right?
Yes, that's true, but her reports are always perfect, and I never have to go back to her with problems, so it kind of evens out.
Okay, good. This report helps a lot. Thanks. Can I keep a copy?
Sure. You can have that one.
Great. Thanks. So, after they send you their reports, you then make sure they're completed correctly. If not, you send it back to them to correct. Then they send you the corrected form back. What happens after that?
Well, assuming it's correct this time.
Oh, so sometimes they're still not fixed?
Yeah, sometimes we'll go back and forth a few times.
Okay, great. Well, once you finally get the correctly completed forms, then what?
Then I start collating them all into the product line sales report that goes to Solomon.
And what's involved in that?
Well, first I copy the information on the product sales report over to my report. Then I enter the product manager's name and stuff next to their rows.
Okay. Can I see one of the product line reports?
Sure. Here's past April's, and yes, you can keep it.
Great, thanks. So it looks like you just add these first few columns yourself?
Yes. I add the product first. Each PM manages a single product, so I copy that over from their reports. And the next column, product code, is matched to that product. I copy that from their reports too. The next column is just the PM's name, then their employee ID.
I don't see the employee ID on their report.
I have a cheat sheet that has those listed, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, that doesn't seem too bad.
Well, it usually isn't. It's just a lot of follow-up to make sure I get all the reports from the PMs. Putting this together isn't really that difficult. It's really just all the custom reports that Solomon needs to see that takes the majority of the time.
Aha, didn't know about those. What are these custom reports?
Well, it changes all the time. Sometimes he wants to see trends, how each product is doing month to month. Sometimes he wants to see all the transactions for a PM. Sometimes he wants to see a single customer's transaction for some time range. It varies quite a lot from month to month.
I see. Does he usually email you those requests, or how do you know which ones to do?
Sometimes he emails me, but more often he just calls me or drops by.
Okay, gotcha. I tell you what, this is quite a lot of information to process, and it's all tremendously helpful. I need some time to go and review the reports you gave me. Can you do me a couple of favors?
Anything for you, Doug.
Well, let's see. You're already going to email me the reports for the last few months that the PM sent you. Can you also send me the corresponding reports you create?
Sure.
And also, we're coming up on the beginning of the month. I really need to observe how you put everything together. Could you give me a call and let me know when to drop by?
It's not very exciting, but sure, I can do that.
Oh, and one other thing. When Solomon asks for custom reports, can you make a list of what he's looking for? That will help to give me a full picture of the project.
Sure. Is that all?
Yeah, that's plenty. Martha, nice seeing you again. And thanks for all the info. This is really helpful.
Okay, let's take a look at what we learned here. First, Martha agrees with Solomon's problems. She agrees that it's a problem that the report isn't ready on the first of each month, and she agrees that report generation takes up too much of her time. The second problem is what she views as biggest, which is understandable because it impacts her more directly. That might cause problems later, though, and we'll probably have to do some analysis to make sure that we understand the right priorities. Doug and Martha spent a lot of time talking about her process, which was one of the big knowledge holes that Doug had earlier. Later on in the scenario, we might actually model this process, but here are some of the overall details I heard in the discussion. First, Martha's description of the process. 5 steps. The first is that at the beginning of the month, all the PMs send their reports to her. The second, the product analyst reviews them for completeness and handles any issues with the product managers. Third, the product analyst adds the data from their reports to hers. Fourth, product analyst sends additional detail or adds additional details from the cheat sheet. And then fifth, the product analyst sends the completed PLSR to the product line manager. Martha also mentioned a bunch of problems. First, some people are a day or two late sending their reports. The other being that she has to chase and follow up with people regularly to get them. And she also mentioned some data problems with the reports. Sometimes the PMs forget to enter the transaction currencies. Sometimes they forget the ship dates. And if you listen carefully, she also said, and stuff, which means that there are other things that happen that we don't yet know about. Martha promised to forward to Doug the emailed PSRs so he can analyze when they were sent and he can analyze each individual report. That'll be helpful. She also provided the data that's in the report, which, as you can see, are the table of data from the PSR, the product code, product manager name, and the product manager employee ID, which comes from her cheat sheet. One interesting thing that she mentioned is that the spreadsheet work itself doesn't take very much time to prepare. It does take some time, though, to follow up with the PMs, and the custom reports for Solomon take a lot of time. And that's actually one of the big topics that came up towards the end of the discussion. It's just that a large part of the effort is creating these on-demand ad hoc reports for Solomon. So Solomon frequently emails, phones, or visits Martha to request these reports, and they vary substantially from month to month. But she did give us a few examples. First, how each product is doing from month to month. Second, all transactions for a PM. And third, all transactions for a customer over a time range. So yeah, Doug is going to want to know a lot more about these custom reports. So that's about the core of the discussion right there. We filled up some of the gaps in our knowledge. The PM reports, mostly addressed. We'll soon have some examples for analysis. Martha's report also mostly addressed, and we'll have a few of those to review as well soon. And the collation process, that's also mostly addressed. We have her understanding of the process, but we'll also want to have Doug observe Martha as she puts that together. But now we also have some new knowledge holes that we'll want Doug to look into. How do the product managers assemble their reports? The other being, how does Solomon use the PLSR in his actual day-to-day work? Oh, and then third, what are these custom reports? How are they put together? How does Solomon use them? And all that kind of stuff. So, wasn't that a productive interview? All right. So after these two scenarios, you have a pretty good idea of how short requirements gathering interviews go. I'll point out a few things, though. First, Doug is certainly not afraid of asking questions. Business analysts commonly are afraid to ask questions or enough questions because they want to look smart. And that's a big mistake. It's important to ask questions or we won't get the answers that we need. And if we don't have the answers, we won't develop the right solutions, which means that we're doing our job poorly. You might also notice that no one called Doug stupid for asking the questions. They simply gave him the answers. And that's almost always what happens in the real world. Another thing is that Doug is smart in that he's focused on filling in the big gaps in his knowledge. He's not going into these interviews with a list of 50 questions. Rather, he's going into them seeking to learn about a few key topics in each one. That is a great strategy for, first of all, managing your own brain, but also for not exhausting your stakeholders. But I will point out that he forgot to ask a couple important things of Martha. He didn't ask if Martha had any additional problems with the process, which actually is probable given her familiarity with it. And he didn't ask if she knew of any additional stakeholders. Nonetheless,